Marvel's Fantastic Four suffered a significant box office drop between its first and second weekend. Now, I'm not going to go too much into this because I already made a video talking about it, but just kind of as a refresher for people who never saw those, they brought in 66% less during their second weekend compared to their first weekend, and an 80% drop off between their Friday to Friday showings. Now, despite the relatively positive word of mouth, we saw the cracks already starting to form even before the opening weekend was concluded. But before I really get into all this, if you're new to the channel here, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on my latest videos. And if you can, leave a comment and hit the like button because it helps out with the channel. So before the opening weekend was concluded, we saw a significant box office drop between the Friday and Saturday showings, which suggested that there was going to be heavily front-loaded audiences for this movie because the box office drop between Friday and Saturday was greater than what you would expect for a comic book movie of this size. And because the movie's audience score, I mean, despite being positive, is just kind of universally referred to as kind of a mediocre movie, it's not enough to drive out audiences and not enough to drive out repeat viewings. And a lot of people within the media are starting to notice that this is a significant problem for Disney in recent years because a lot of their comic book movies just haven't been performing like they used to. And right now, with the release of Fantastic Four coming out at a time when they were supposed to have an earnings call, you know the Disney executives were wanting to report something good for this movie, but that's just not the case because even the media has to acknowledge that this movie is going to ultimately be a financial failure for the studio. So what's Disney to do but to try to pivot and distract audiences with something that they think will perform a lot better, and that's Spider-Man, because we've gotten a lot of behind the scenes footage coming out from Spider-Man. They released a teaser trailer for it, and it's really just a 22-second teaser of Tom Holland in the Spider-Man suit. And honestly, the suit, I think, looks pretty good. I think the Spider-Man movie has the potential to be another big hit for the studio because you can just look at the enthusiasm for this movie compared to what we saw with Fantastic Four, and it's significantly higher. The like to dislike ratio is pretty good for us, and after just a few days, it's gotten over or close to 4 million views on the official YouTube page for just this Tom Holland wearing the suit, and that's about it. And when you look at the MCU post Endgame, you can see why there's a lot more excitement for Spider-Man, because going back to look at Avengers Endgame, so $2.7 billion, and since then there's only been $3 billion movies for the MCU. And two of those are the Spider-Man movies. The other one is Deadpool and Wolverine. And you also have to take into consideration these successful movies right here, the billion-dollar ones, are ones that weren't necessarily Kevin Feige calling the shots. It was basically outside forces are the ones that were making them. The Spider-Man ones in particular are Sony produced. Marvel does get a cut of it, but they're not making the movie. It's not a Marvel Spider-Man movie, it's a Sony Spider-Man movie, and I think that's why audiences like it, not because it's Sony particularly, but because they're just a lot better at managing the character than what Marvel Studios would have done. And I think part of that is because of the good word of mouth and the goodwill that the Spider-Man movies have brought. That's why there's significantly more enthusiasm, and why I think Marvel has been trying to distract from the poor performance of Fantastic Four with Marvel right here, because I think it would be kind of funny for them to release this promotional material for Spider-Man right after Fantastic Four was released, assuming Fantastic Four was doing good, because they'd want to give it its time in the limelight, let people talk about it, let that good word of mouth circulate amongst the public. But because it's doing poorly at the box office, they're like, okay, let's just distract with something else that we think will actually get some positive attention, and that's why they're doing this with Spider-Man. We saw Marvel do this even recently with Ironheart. They released that just before the big superhero blockbusters were set to release in theaters, because they knew Ironheart was going to be a poor performer. That's why they shot it years ago, spent so much time re-editing it, sat on it for years before they're like, okay, we kind of have to get it out there, so let's just rip off this Band-Aid, put it out right before the big summer movies come out, and then people will stop talking about it after a week or so. And I'm sure there's people who are probably watching this, they were like, oh yeah, Ironheart did come out. It's like, yes, it did. It did terrible, and people just forgot about it because it was one of the worst Marvel things that they've ever produced, not only on streaming, but also theatrically released. So it really isn't above Marvel to try to do something like this, distract with something that they think will be a little bit more popular. And that's what it feels like they're doing with Spider-Man. And you know what? Yeah, I think it kind of works to a certain extent, because a lot of this Marvel stuff, or a lot of the stuff that's being released for Spider-Man is definitely getting a lot more hype right here. People talking about it. It's all generally positive too. A lot of this stuff that they're releasing, that kind of presenting it as if it's candid things shot behind the scenes, but you know, they're actually producing it themselves. I mean, this is an official account for them over on X, releasing this material. So, you know, this was done deliberately. And the only reason why I would think it was done to distract is because even though it's Sony produced, I'm sure Marvel has some say so in the promotional aspect of it. And I doubt Sony would be stepping on toes just to release this to distract from a Fantastic Four movie if the release was successful. It really does seem like this is something that they're trying to do in order to draw attention away from the poor performance of it. But what are the greater ramifications of this to the MCU? Well, going back to the numbers here, like I said before, you can see that there really hasn't been any billion-dollar hits for Marvel since Endgame. And when you look up to the lead up to the release of Avengers Endgame, there was a lot more billion-dollar hits, even so much so that, whereas Captain Marvel itself, a movie that wasn't really liked at the time that it was released, but still was able to get over $1 billion at the international box office, because the hype for for Avengers Endgame was so high. People were going to watch anything in the lead up to the release of it. Captain Marvel was billed as the movie that's leading up into Avengers Endgame between Avengers Infinity War. So people watch that movie just out of obligation. Now, Fantastic Four is being billed as the lead up to the release of Avengers Doomsday. And so far we can see that audiences are just kind of meh on this. Now, does that mean that Avengers Doomsday is going to be a box office failure? It depends on how you look at it, because there are rumors going around that the movie needs to generate $2 billion at the global box office in order to break even. I'll have to see more about that before I can actually decide whether or not I believe it or not, but I think there is some plausibility to it. I did a video previously talking about it. You can go look for that if you haven't seen it. I do think Avengers Doomsday is going to have enough hype surrounding it that it could probably generate $1 billion at the global box office. But it really does feel like the enthusiasm for the MCU is just kind of waning in recent years. And while there can be some movies out there like Spider-Man that still have it in them to generate $1 billion, the days of Marvel expecting to have a high revenue from their movies, I think, are over. In the past, they pretty much treated all their movies as if at minimum they're going to make $700 million at the global box office. I don't think they can do that anymore. I think they would probably expect maybe $300-400 million at a minimum for them for an okay performing movie. I mean, obviously you can see like the Marvels, Thunderbolts here. I mean, those kind of underperformed compared to that, but I think Marvel should, instead of treating their floor as $700 million, probably treat it closer to $300-400 million and budget their movies accordingly. That means like probably $100 million budget at the most, in order to hope to actually regain profitability at the box office. I mean, one thing people are saying right now is 800 million is now the new $1 billion, and that's kind of true for that. So the movies need to stop budgeting their movies in order to make it so that they have to hit $1 billion in order to be profitable, because that's just not in the cards for them right now. But let me know what you think about this in the comment section below. And also, if you haven't already, make sure you click that subscribe button if you want to stay up to date with the latest entertainment news. And don't forget to click the like button and share this video out there, because it really helps out with the channel. Thank you.